everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Arden. If you're new here, hello, hi, how are ya? And if you're not new here, welcome back. I am so happy you're here. Today we are going to take a look at all of the books that I've read in 2019. At the beginning of 2019, I set myself a goal of reading 45 books, even though normally I read 50, 60 books per year, but last year was a really bad year for me. I only read 10 books because I was so busy and I was traveling and there was so much going on. So I wanted to take it easy this year. And I was glad I did. So right now it is November 12th and I've read 44 out of 45 books. So the last book I'm not actually going to include, but I will read that one book by the end of the year. This year was probably one of the most productive years when it comes to clearing my bookshelf by reading books and seeing what I like and seeing what I don't like. And this year was probably one of the best years regarding not buying books. I was good this year. Hopefully Santa will buy me books. Starting with January, the first book that I have read this year is A Journal of the Plague Year by Daniel Defoe. Now, if you know me, you probably know that I am obsessed with plagues, I am obsessed with viruses, I am obsessed with end of the world scenarios. I am really interested in how it works, how people react, and how it affected and transformed our world. So that's what I found myself interested in, and that's why I read this book. This is my third book on the Black Death or the bubonic plague, and I thought it was interesting. Not my favorite, but my second favorite out of the three. Second book I read is Words in Deep Blue by Cath Crowley. It was a really good book and a really cute book, and I really enjoyed it. Third book I read this year is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas is one of my favorite writers, but A Court of Frost and Starlight did not measure up to my expectations. I did not feel drawn to this world as I did in A Court of Mist and Fury. So I'm hoping that will change in the future books, even though I think this is only a novella. Book number 4, Flight or Fright, edited by Stephen King and Bev Vincent. This book wasn't my favorite, but I decided to read it simply because I love watching air crash investigation, but this did not deliver. It was interesting. I rated it 2 out of 5 stars though. Book number 5, Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver, which was on my bookshelf for years. I finally decided to give it a go this year, and I did not regret it. It was my first 5 out of 5 star rating in 2019, and I would still give it 5 out of 5 star. I loved it so much. Number 6, The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. I had Alexandra's books on my bookshelf for years, but I haven't given any of them a chance until this one. And I don't know how I got into reading this one, but I loved it. Not at first. After finishing the book, I realized that I couldn't stop thinking about this story, and I couldn't wait for the next book, which I still haven't read, but I definitely will. Number 7 is The Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz. Have you watched Descendants, the movies on Disney? Because this is a book series either based on the movies or the movies were based on the series. I started reading it and then quickly realized that this was mostly for children, but I can enjoy children's books, okay? I can. I promise you that I can. However, I did not really find myself enjoying this story. I thought there was something missing. There was a magic missing. Something that just makes you think that everything's possible. And you were supposed to think that with Disney stories, but it just, I don't know, it did not deliver. Something was missing. Number 8 has a really long title, so all I'm gonna say is Instant Wicked Magic by Sylvia Shorewood. Now, I was really into Wicca at the beginning of this year, and I still am. I'm just really slow at learning. I found it was a short read. It's kind of like an introduction, which I liked. Number 9, The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. After I finished it, I didn't think that I actually liked it. It was also the same with The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. After I finished the book, I could not stop thinking about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. Number 10, Hex by Michelle Chris, I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't remember much about this book. Let me think about this. I really want to say this properly. In 2015, books had different standards, and what was published in 2015 might not be published today because the publishing world is different today than it was in 2015. And I get that. I wrote a book in 2015 that had the same tropes as Hexed had. So I definitely see the influence of 2015. Given the mental state that I am in now, and given everything that I know, I could not find myself enjoying this book. It's just that I've read so many books that were kind of made of the same cloth, I guess. And it's just overplayed and overdone with me. But there might be people who will enjoy this story. It wasn't, at the time when I was reading it, it was not my cup of tea. And I wish that I had read it before, a couple of years earlier, because I really think that I would enjoy it. Number 11 is Last Sacrifice by Rochelle Mead. Number 11 is Last Sacrifice by Number 11 is Last Sacrifice by Rochelle Mead. Long story short, I have been reading the Vampire Academy series for years. I read the first 5 books in a span of like 1 year. And then the last book came and I got into a book slump because I have been in this world too long and I just needed a break. And this year I finally did it and got it off my TBR. I finished reading it and I enjoyed it. It wasn't the ending that I needed. It was kind of like an open ending. I create something different, but we know that this book series has a spin-off called Bloodlines, which is where I am currently having my phone propped up on. So, yay! Makeshift tripods, we love that. Number 12, The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This is also an example of a book that I have had on my bookshelf for years and finally gave it a chance. Not my favorite, but I found myself enjoying it nonetheless. So that concludes January. Now we move on to March because I did not read anything in February. It was that kind of a year for me. Book number 13 that I've read, To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. You know it. It was really popular last year. It was one of the books that was on my bookshelf and I picked it up, I read it, I liked it. Not bad. Number 14, The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. I'm not a big poetry fan, but I was in the mood back then and liked it. Number 15, Unfiltered. No shame, no regrets, just me by Lily Collins. Lily Collins is one of my favorite actresses. I think she's so nice and she's so kind and she's so beautiful and she's so talented. I don't know, she's such a good role model. Reading this book gave me a little bit of a background on her and seeing what she struggled with. But when she dove into each of her stories, I liked how positive she was. And everything had kind of like a message and a positive spin on it, which I really enjoyed. Number 16, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis. This is the third book in Narnia, I think, or actually the third movie of Narnia. And this is my favorite movie of Narnia and probably my favorite book. 17, It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han. This year I read all of my Jenny Han books that I've owned for years, and this is the second book in the Summer I Turned Pretty series. And I love The Summer I Turned Pretty. The It's Not Summer Without You, I actually really liked. Number 18, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Here's the deal. We've all probably watched The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix when it was popular. If you haven't, props to you. I loved it, and I don't regret watching it. I've heard so many good things about it, so I was weak and I binge watched the entire thing. And I expected The Haunting of Hill House, the book, to be kind of the same way for me to enjoy it. But I'm not a big fan of horror, or actually I haven't read any horror stories that would interest me or scare me. And the same was with this book. It was just a bit underwhelming. Also, I have to mention every single thing they've changed in the TV show was so much better. Made it so much better. Number 19, Crazy Rich Asians. Cause we love our Asians crazy and rich by Kevin Kwan. This book I absolutely adore. This was one of my favorite reads of 2019 because I love the movie and it was really evident that this author was really detail oriented and probably had tons of notes when it comes to each character, because the way he was able to stay true to every character and remember every detail was fantastic and fascinating. And I loved the depth of the characters. I love the background stories. I love everything, especially the cuteness of this book. I really, really, really enjoyed this book and cannot wait to read on. Number 20, P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. Another Jenny Han book. This is the second book in To All the Boys I Loved Before. Probably my favorite one so far. 21, Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. Now, I have a few concerns with this book. At the time when I was reading it, I actually really enjoyed it. Now that I think about it, it can be triggering. I'm not sure how I feel about this book. Number 22, Always and Forever, Lara Jean by Jenny Han. The last book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, which I did not enjoy. I kind of was not rooting for her and Peter Kavinsky at the end of the book, because I did not like him in the second book. Now we move on to April, the first book of April, and the 25th book of 2019 that I've read is My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This book inspired so many of my books. Back in 2015, I read about half of this book and did not finish it at the time. But the thing with this book is that there were some themes and concepts that I really loved and used in my books as inspiration, mainly inspiration. Because we all love neighbors, especially if they're bad boy. But yeah, so I wrote my books thanks to this book, and I started writing thanks to this book. And this year I finally finished it, and it was just as lovely and just as enjoyable as it was in 2015. Now the book 24 is The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. By that time when I read The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One, I actually was not into poetry anymore, so I did not necessarily enjoy it as much as I could have. Number 25, We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. This is the third book in this series, and it is the book that I hated. I did not enjoy because my ship wasn't sailing, and we all know how that goes. Shadow and Bone series, The Darkling, hello. But yeah, the ending was cute, like the epilogue, I think. Was it the epilogue or the last chapter? But everything else was a mess, and it was rushed, and it was meant to keep the reader on at the edge of their seats. I don't like how it's turned out. Now we move on to June. And the first book of June that I've read is The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. This was also the 26th book of this year. And I found myself wondering, who's the killer? Who's the prince? This book kept me at the edge of my seat, and this time in a good way. I could not put it down. And when we got the plot twist, I knew it. I was right. Like, I knew it. I have book number 27, Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford. When I first read this book, I did enjoy it, but not really that much. Me trying to stay kind to people. There could be a lot more depth added to the characters and to the story, and I think it could have been done so much better and more appropriately. I don't remember much about this book, but I remember reading it, and I was not impressed. Moving on to July and to the beginning of my summer vacation, the 28th book that I've read that year is Wake by Amanda Hawking. I found it really predictable. That's my only problem with this book. I was able to foresee every single event that happened in that book. If I didn't feel like I've already read this story, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. Number 29 was a reread of mine, Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is the first book in the Covenant series, and I love it just the same as I did back in 2015, 2014 when I read it. This book is so good. It's a mixture between Percy Jackson and Vampire Academy, and it's done in the perfect way, so read it if you haven't yet. I really recommend it. Book number 30 is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. A little note to add here, I love Morgan Matson's books. Morgan Matson became my auto-buy author after reading just one of her books, Second Chance Summer. And I've had high expectations for all of her books, Since You've Been Gone being one of them. And I was not disappointed. I love summer books, and this was the perfect summer read for me. I absolutely loved it. Loved it. Number 51 is Amy and Roger's Epic Detour by Morgan Matson herself. I also love this book. It was so cute, but it also made me cry. So if you read this book, know that it's quite an emotional read, just like Second Chance Summer, but it's just as good. Moving on to August, book number 32 is another reread of mine, which is Pure by Jennifer Armentrout, which is the second book in the Covenant series. Back in 2014-2015, when I started reading the series, I only read the first 3 books, but I think there's 6 books now, and I own all of them. I just haven't gotten to reading the rest of them yet and finishing this series, which I really want. The reason why I didn't finish this series before is because my ship wasn't sailing, but now that I've reread the series and I'm not a hormonal teenager anymore, I actually appreciate the ship that is in this book, and I actually feel that it is more right, and I cannot wait to read the spin-off. Number 33 that's gonna get me crucified is The Raven Boys by Maggie STIEFVATER. Please don't kill me. I did not enjoy The Raven Boys at all. I thought it was boring. There was something missing about this book. I'm gonna read the rest of the series because I am interested in how everything turns out, but I don't know. It wasn't my cup of tea. Number 34 changed my life. That book is called 5 Things Successful People Do Before 8 a.m. by Terry Savelle Foy. Said in one breath. That book is probably one of my favorites this year, if not the absolute favorite. It is a self-help book that put things into my perspective. This book motivated me to get so many things done that I just kept putting off. And I used to be a procrastinator, which I still am a little bit. Whenever I feel myself getting or being swallowed in that black hole of stress and demotivation, is that a word? Or just when I feel unproductive, I listen to that book on, and I'm inspired. Number 35, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. This book was meant to be a read in me and my sister's new book club, but she did not read it. I did. This book resembled a textbook in a way, and it did not make me happy because I felt like I was back in school. Number 36, A Beginner's Guide to the Universe by Mike Dooley. This is one of the most quotable books ever, and I love it, and it was a cute read. Number 37, and probably the last self-help book that I read, The 3-Day Effect by Florence Williams. Now, this is an Audible version. This is on Audible, and it was an audiobook. It was recorded in a documentary style, which I liked. Everything in that book just didn't stick with me, so it did not help me help myself at all. Number 38, and signaling the end of my self-help books, was Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, my second book by Neil Gaiman this year, and I loved it. I thought Thor was a jackass. I thought I did not like the characters. I actually sympathized with Loki. Beginning September, in the 39th place, I read Forgo by JTJ. This book was sent to me for a review, which I posted on Goodreads if you want to check it out. I was also contacted by another author, and in the 40th place is The Black Orchids by Ish Goel. Now, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right, but yeah, I really enjoyed this book as well. Moving on to October. In the 41st place is The Giver by Lois Lowry. Lowry? I don't know. This book was such a cute read, but the movie misled me to think that this was a standalone. It's actually the first book in the series, and I didn't know that, and I've had it for years. Oh my god. The number of times I checked it out on Goodreads, and I didn't realize that it was in a series. Like, am I dumb? I enjoyed it. I really did. Another great book that I've read in the 42nd place is A Monster Crawls by Patrick Ness. This was one of my favorites this year. oh, I loved it so much. It made me cry. It really made me cry. And it's a good book that I probably will reread. Number 43, Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Oh my gosh, Morgan Matsson's books, Jenny Han's books, Neil Gaiman's books. This year I'm on a roll with certain authors that I've admired. Stardust has the same problem as The Isle of the Lost. It doesn't have something. Something is missing. It doesn't have magic. It doesn't have something that makes me wanna say, oh my gosh, this is the best read ever. However, the movie Stardust does have that something that I'm looking for. I don't really know what it is, but it just makes me wanna scream that this book doesn't have it. I'm so sad. The last book that I've read this year is The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis, which is the 4th book in the Narnia series. I liked it, but it was not my favorite. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader was still my favorite. I will, however, continue with the series and I will finish it sometime in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, for sticking with me. If you like this video, click the thumbs up button, share it with your friends, your people, subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell to keep yourself notified, and leave a comment telling me what I should do next, or yeah, what you liked about this video, or your opinions on the books that I've read. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!